Oh, is this the crazy lady? Is this the crazy lady who pretended that she could do all these like insane blood tests with like one drop of blood, which is, to anybody that knows anything about pathology, is complete bull. You can't go into any detail, but you've met some people like her in real life that you're super sus about in seemingly big positions. Oh, so many people that are higher ups in a lot of positions, you talk to them, and if you have like any knowledge above like lay person knowledge or like a bachelor's degree in something, and you talk to some people that are really, really high up in their professions, it becomes very apparent, like very... Yeah, let's just say there were a lot of people like faking it till they made it, and they unfortunately did make it. It's very scary. Especially like Generation X and baby boomers, there seem to be a lot of frauds that were able to just, you know, bullshit their way to the top and nobody's ever checked them. All right, let's watch this about the Thanos lady. The weird Thanos lady with the dead eyes. She has very dead eyes. I always get comments about my eyes. People are like, oh, you have like the nicest eyes. They're so expressive. And I'm like, oh, maybe so many soulless people are just walking around that like if you have a soul, people are like, oh my God, your eyes are so bright and sparkly. I get told that my eyes are sparkly a lot. I'm like, it's probably allergies, dude. It's probably allergies.
Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes has now officially been indicted on federal wire fraud charges. The U.S. Attorney's Office accusing her of engaging...
Imagine building a company that everyone thought would change the world, but ended up being one of the biggest frauds in history. Theranos, the company started in 2003 by Stanford dropout Elizabeth Holmes, was just that. They fooled everyone, receiving over $600 million of funding in the process. What Theranos promised was a revolutionary blood analyzer that could run hundreds of tests just from a finger prick in the comfort of your own home. However, this story isn't one of great success or inspiration. This story is about deceit, fraud, manipulation, and
Dude, I'm somebody that has to get blood tests like every 6 weeks, right? I have to get blood tests done every 6 weeks. So I have like an exemption free on like my blood forms, and they give me like a little card. I have to carry around a little card in my wallet with like my blood test schedule. And the amount of blood that they take just to run, hang on. Let me open up this drawer. I'll tell you what blood tests I get done. It's not, this form isn't many. Okay, that is the wrong form. Hang on. I just went to the rheumatologist. I'll tell you what blood tests I get done. That is the receipt for the rheumatologist. Where's my fucking blood form? Maybe it's not in there. I was going to tell you what blood tests I get done, but it's in my handbag. Hang on. BRB. Okay, so these are the blood tests that I get done, and it's a lot of vials of blood just for these. Just to test for these, it's a lot of vials of blood. I don't know what these acronyms stand for, so I'll search them up. I'm not a... Alright, so I get FBE, which is full blood examination, and I get UEC, or urea, electrolytes, and creatine. I guess that's to check for lupus nephritis. So that's probably important. I've never actually looked up what any of these mean. I'm just like, take my blood, lady. LFT? Liver function test? Yeah, that makes sense because I have lupus. ESR. Oh, I know what the ESR is. That's the estimated sedimentation rate. That's when they see how long your sediment takes to get to the bottom of like, to settle. And that's an indication for inflammation. I know that one. I know ESR. And CRP. Measures inflammation in the body. Yeah, so I get all those done. And that is a lot of vials of blood, kid. It's a lot of blood. It's like 3. You got sand in your blood? Yeah, it's the sediment in your blood. It's like, because you know how like your blood is like composed of like plasma and different like white blood cells, red blood cells. It's like how it settles down, I think. I don't know, I could be wrong. I'm a social worker, not a doctor, guys. All right, give me a break. I'm doing my best. But yeah, just for those blood tests, it's a lot of blood. Like, there's no way you can get a pinprick of blood. Like, that is fantasy land. That is fantasy land. The only way I can think that you would be able to do that was if like you could grow more blood, like replicate the blood out from a small blood sample. Does that make sense? Do people get what I mean? Because like once you use the sample's ruined, right? Once you test the sample's not usable again. Is my understanding. Because a lot of the time they're like centrifuging it, or they're doing this, or they're doing that. Most blood tests are destructive. Yeah, that's what I would have thought. So unless like the one drop of blood is like they take the one drop of blood and they like, for lack of a better word, like extrapolate it, like somehow, you can't do it. Here we go.
This is the story of Theranos, a company once worth $9 billion, and the story of how it all came crashing down in one of the worst disasters in Silicon Valley history. What exactly was Theranos, and how did it go so horribly wrong?
Well, apparently the other thing was like a lot of the men that she got to invest were like older men. And maybe they like, you know, because she was young and she was talking to them, they were getting attention from a younger woman, yada, yada, yada. She was kind of able to charm like a lot of like investors with just like being young and blonde. Not even like, I'm not calling her ugly, but you know, like she was, you know, she's not walking in the Victoria's Secret model fucking show or anything. You love that Forbes lists are good predictors for FBI lists? Yeah.
From a young age, Elizabeth knew what she wanted in life, to be a billionaire. At age 18, she went on a Stanford-run tour of China, where she met a man 20 years her senior called Sunny. Sunny immigrated from Pakistan and had some success in the dot-com boom of 1999, pocketing $40 million in the process. He had what she wanted, money and the status of a successful entrepreneur. Sunny would later play a big role in Elizabeth's company. The idea was to create a wearable patch which could continually test the blood of the wearer and admit the right dose of medicine in real time. Filled with determination, she dropped out of Stanford at age 19 and started her own company. The early days were not glamorous. Despite this, she received a $1 million seed investment from her old neighbour who had made some money investing in Hotmail. Early on, Elizabeth rode on the reputation of her investors. However, when it came to investors that specialised in medicine, she struggled to convince them as her lack of knowledge started showing. It wasn't a surprise because she had only spent a few semesters at university. So for most tech entrepreneurs, this kind of thing isn't a big issue. For example, Mark Zuckerberg only needed to master...
Just with what I know about hematology, just from what I know about hematology and pathology, just from being a patient, it sounds so bogus. If you see how much blood you need to run one test, it's just against every testing method that we have. And you don't have jumps that big in technology, right? These things happen incrementally. You just don't have jumps that big. She had a really cool fake machine that didn't do anything. Yeah. They had dollar signs in their eyes. Well, yeah, everybody wants to get in on the next best thing, on the next big thing, right? Everybody wants to be on the ground floor of like the next like Bitcoin or fucking whatever it is. But you know, everyone wants to be the person that bought Microsoft stock in like 1990, right? You want to be that person, but very few people are. Very few people are.
On the other hand, medicine and chemistry are fields that require decades of knowledge and research to find a breakthrough. Regardless, by the end of the year, Elizabeth had nearly $6 million in funding and her idea had changed. Now, the blood testing would be done by a cartridge and reader system. Here's how it was supposed to work. Patients would prick their fingers, storing blood in a small cartridge. Pushing this cartridge into a machine would run the tests. The Theranos machines envisioned would perform tests on the spot and beam information via the internet to a lab where personnel would interpret the results and send a report back. Traditionally, the current industry procedure was to draw a syringe full of blood from a vein and physically send the sample to a lab. The old way used large machines the size of several business photocopiers, and the results would take a few days to get back from a doctor.
Sometimes I've gotten priority blood tests done within a few hours when I've been having like very extreme SLE symptoms. I've gotten blood tests back. And when you're at the hospital, also you get blood tests back very contemporaneously as well. But I've had blood tests done just like Dorovich, where they've put in like that they're emergency blood tests, and I've gotten them. They've come and picked up the blood and they've tested it within hours. Like they do triage blood tests in Australia, for sure. So I don't know. And honestly, I guess some people would consider blood tests invasive, but it's something that you get desensitized to very quickly. When you're somebody that gets blood tests done, scores of times a year, you just it's just, you don't even feel it. It doesn't even register on your pain scale anymore. It's I know a lot of people are squeamish with needles, but it's not that bad. It honestly isn't.
Theranos would try to scale down the components of these massive machines to fit into a box the size of a personal computer. Theranos was going to make this process faster, more comfortable, and completely bypass the need for a doctor. Now this is the big lie and the problem with Theranos. There were several issues that made the Theranos machines nearly impossible. Firstly, the components would interfere with each other when placed in close proximity due to a magnitude of problems including heat, light, and electrical activity. Next, to have sufficient volume of test samples from only a pinprick on a finger, the drops of blood had to be diluted. Over-diluted samples gave inaccurate results and was outside the detection capability of the hardware. So in short, for the technology to be possible, Theranos had to make major breakthroughs on all fronts of blood analysis. They had to do all of this while only reporting to Elizabeth, who didn't really have the knowledge.
What was her bachelor's? What was her bachelor's that she obviously didn't complete, but what did she partially study? Chemical engineering. She was studying chemical engineering. It's almost like there's a reason the tests are done separately and don't get done all at the same time in one big machine. Yeah, I know. Well, I get a separate vial of blood taken for each test that I get, Kay. Each test that I get. And you can see some of the vials of blood, like for the ESR, they need a lot more blood. So they'll take a big vial. And then some of the other tests are like different vials. And some of the other tests, there'll be like a serum already in the, like the tube. Yeah, so... Yeah, because I get blood tests done all the time. I always ask the nurses questions. I'm always like asking them questions about it. Different testing, different conditions, yeah.
Elizabeth enlisted engineers to design a new version called the Edison. However, no Theranos machine would ever be accurate or capable of performing the full range of tests that Elizabeth claimed. Elizabeth started to push the engineering team manager to make the Edison development run 24/7. When the manager refused, stating that the engineers were overworked as it is, Elizabeth hired a parallel engineering team and pitted the two teams against each other in a survival of the fittest race. This kind of thing was actually a tactic that Steve Jobs also used with the original Mac and the iPhone. But in Theranos' case, the losing team would be fired. Elizabeth also started doing some ethically questionable things, such as running a pilot test on cancer patients.
Yeah, somebody whose goal is making money, like her goal wasn't to make pathology, to make hematology like more accessible to like poor people. Her goal was to become a billionaire. People like this are always going to be questionable, right? She doesn't actually care about the health outcomes of people. This wasn't like somebody that set out to make the world a better place and, happened to become rich and successful because of this. This is somebody whose sole goal was to be a billionaire. Like, this is somebody that's like, kind of you got to question people like this always. Fire the scientists who got the correct results. Yeah. Well, yeah, because they're exposing her. Her goal isn't to create a machine that works. Her goal is to get money and get away with it, and I hope that nobody exposes her. But I don't know what her plan was after she got the money. Was she going to abscond? Was she going to change her name? Was she going to try and get plastic surgery?
She knew the product didn't work yet, but insisted on running real tests on people that had serious illnesses. To highlight how serious this was, of course, the only reason the cancer trials went ahead is that Elizabeth had been outright lying to investors and clients about how well the product actually worked. The same year, the company's CFO discovered that Elizabeth had been lying. He told her to stop. Instead of agreeing, she fired him on the spot.
Yeah,
After this,
fucking
Elizabeth
gross.
never hired another chief financial officer again, leaving the position vacant for a decade. In 2007, there was no bigger Silicon Valley star than Steve Jobs. Elizabeth had started developing an obsession for Jobs. An employee even found a newspaper cutout on her desk where someone called her the next Steve Jobs.
Her face is so uncanny looking. Like, just as an aside, her face freaks me out. And it's not an indictment of like her... I don't want to judge somebody by their appearance, but there's just something so uncanny about her face, like the spacing of her eyes. And is her face really symmetrical? Is that what's throwing me off, is how symmetrical her face is? But there's just something that just makes my, like, intuitively, that just is like raising alarm bells for me. Even not knowing what type of person she is, just looking at her face, someone like this would make me feel uncomfortable in real life, I think. I don't know, is it facial symmetry that I'm seeing that's like very like higher than average? Or is it the spacing of the eye that's like very, I don't know. Something about it is just something about her is creeping me out. And then plus the way like she made her voice have like a very low register, like she taught herself to have like a low voice. And the mimicking Steve Jobs, like with the black turtleneck or whatever. I don't know, it's just all so weird, dude. It's all so weird. But obviously it worked because she got a lot of smart people to invest in her bullshit. She got a lot of like people with above average intelligence to buy her bullshit, so.
The board of Theranos was made up of a star-studded panel. Don Lucas, who mentored the founder of Oracle, was the chairman. One day, Elizabeth wanted to restructure the company's shares, which would give her majority voting rights. Ex-Apple employee, Avi, who was on the board, didn't think that this was a good idea, and paired with the information that he'd received from employees about the problems during testing, he felt like he had to do something. He spoke with Don Lucas, the chairman, but this resulted in Avi resigning after he felt that his advice fell on deaf ears. Elizabeth had the board wrapped around her finger. She was a master manipulator. She spoke in a low baritone voice in order to be taken more seriously.
The question was, as a 19-year-old, how do you go about the process of convincing people that you know what you're doing? It's about finding people who believe in you, because...
Do you know who her voice reminds me of? Her voice reminds me of Lauren Southern, the great right-wing grifter from Trump's first term in office, like from 2016 or whatever. And like she's been like exposed as like a total fraud too. She was hooking up with like, you know, the left-wing Twitch streamer that made Hassan famous, Destiny. She was hooking up with him until very, very recently. And apparently she was working for the feds the whole time and everything. But it's interesting, people do that because I know because of my voice, people don't take me very seriously, or people tend to think I'm a lot dumber than I am. But this is my natural voice. I have a very, very small rib cage, and I sound a lot younger than I am, and so people tend, and I look a lot younger than I am, so people tend to not take me very seriously. But I find like a lot of women that want to be taken seriously either have a low voice or they like feign a low voice. Wasn't Destiny someone who was outed as like yeah, there's something going on at the moment. There's a court case going on at the moment where he was messaging somebody that was 17 or like procuring nudes from somebody that was 17, allegedly. I don't want to comment on ongoing litigation. It's kind of a dicey thing to do. Yeah, Vaush is a different guy, but all of those extremely far left people seem to like defend some questionable things like lowering the age of consent, which has what to do with left-wing politics, I don't know, but concerning behavior, I will say that. Gross.
Shortly after the company moved to a prime location in Silicon Valley, a new member of the sales team soon found out that the financial projections were based off pilot tests that weren't honest. The issue was brought to the board, who ran an emergency meeting and decided to fire Elizabeth. 2 hours after they brought her in to tell her the decision, she had convinced them to reverse it. This incredible power of persuasion is another reason why Theranos went so far with no real working technology. Shortly after the meeting, Elizabeth fired those who raised the alarm. By this stage, employees leaving or being fired was common. In fact, all employees who came from...
Do you think that NDAs were the reason why no one could expose that she didn't actually have the technology that she was claiming to have? Because you know how NDAs are supposed to be, what they're supposed to be used for is like to protect trade secrets. So say if Theranos was like a working blood blood testing system. They obviously wouldn't be able to disclose that after leaving, because so I assume the NDA would also preclude you from preclude you, that's the word I'm looking for, preclude you from exposing that they in fact had no technology, that they just had a very fancy looking machine that did jack shit. I assume the NDAs would also work in that way.
By 2009, Sunny, the millionaire Pakistani immigrant, was now Elizabeth's boyfriend and had joined the company as second in charge. Sunny came from a software background and had little knowledge of the inner workings of a medical company. He also boasted of having extreme wealth and only coming to work because he wanted to. He also had a habit of latching onto buzzwords and using them despite little knowledge of the topic. He was feared within the company. He constantly fired people and let his tempers flare. 2010 saw a whole lot of money pouring into Silicon Valley. Facebook, Twitter and Uber were all taking off. Meanwhile, Walgreens and Safeway had both entered talks with Theranos to partner and create wellness centers. These were sections in their stores where patients could get blood tests. Theranos presented Walgreens with 192 different tests that could be performed by their Edison machine. However, only about half of them were even theoretically possible. No actual testing was done on the machines themselves. But Theranos was hot stuff, and Walgreens had the fear of missing out and letting their competitors land a partnership. Elizabeth also made such an impression on the Walgreens and Safeway executives that they trusted every word she said.
This is probably also, my understanding is that Walgreens is related to Walmart. It's like the same overarching company. And I believe, I'm not American, but I believe it's my belief that that's a store that people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, frequent. So she was more than willing to have her bogus machines rolled out into places where people from lower socioeconomic people with less access to medicine, usually poorer health outcomes. She was more than willing for them to go and get bogus blood tests done, which is absolutely disgusting. Because I guarantee you, the rich people at the hospital, the rich people that have access to hospitals and private healthcare and everything, they probably wouldn't be using these machines. It sounds like it was something that they were going to target poor people with, which is fucking gross behavior.
Safeway and Walgreens gave Theranos $105 million in investment and loans. Around this time, Elizabeth realized that the Edison wasn't good enough, so she commissioned the Minilab, the third iteration of the blood testing product. Meanwhile, Sunny intimidated employees and watched CCTV footage of them to see exactly how long people were working. One time, he told an employee that he would, quote, fix him after finding that he'd only worked 8 hours per day. Elizabeth backed up the decision, stating to employees that, quote, if anyone here believes that you are not working on the best thing humans have ever built, or if you're cynical, then you should leave, end quote. Basically, anyone who agreed with Elizabeth got promoted, and those who doubted got fired.
Sunny is a nut job, man. We'll get people like that with no ability to self-regulate and just fly off the handle and stuff like that. They either end up really, really rich or in jail. A good example is someone like Tony Abbott. If Tony Abbott hadn't grown up on the northern beaches and been the son of a dentist, if Tony Abbott was born in Mount Druitt, Tony Abbott would be in jail, not Prime Minister of Australia. You know what I'm saying? Depending on what card you're dealt with, somebody that has that temperament, they either end up really, really successful or in jail, right? That's typically, in my experience, from the people that I know with those types of temperaments, that's how it goes.
By 2012, Safeway wasn't doing well. They had poured $350 million into renovations of store space across their store locations in anticipation for the Theranos machines. They were only met with constant launch delays and excuses. When Theranos did start accepting Safeway employee samples, they were tested on existing commercial third-party machines in a lab. But Safeway was lied to and given the impression that all of these tests were being performed on Theranos Edison machines.
They weren't even running most of the tests on the Theranos devices. and most of the tests were being run on third-party machines.
Did Ms. Holmes know at the time that Theranos could not do all those tests?
She knew.
Meanwhile, Theranos' lawsuit from Richard, the jealous family friend and medical doctor, was in full swing. He was serious about taking Theranos down. He hired the same lawyer that worked on the deposition case of Bill Gates, and the cost? $1,000 an hour. A pivotal point for Theranos' downfall came with the subpoena of Ian Gibbons, who had led the chemistry team since 2005. In May of 2013, Ian was notified by Theranos that in just 2 days' time, he would be involved in Richard's trial. He feared that anything that he might say may put the company in jeopardy and expose the lies. Ian was miserable at Theranos and had just been demoted, but feared that leaving as a 67-year-old would make it impossible for him to get another job. The next morning, Ian's wife, Rochelle, found him in the bathroom having overdosed on medication. He died a week later in hospital. Back at Theranos, in a display of the coldest heart, Elizabeth didn't return Rochelle's call about the death of her husband.
Oh my god. She's fucking evil. She's fucking evil. That's so sad. That's so sad. Yeah. Fucking hell, man. Yeah, weird, creepy looking lady.
During this period, Theranos was still carrying out tests on third-party machines and desperately trying to get results. They had already promised their machines to the world, and they had a $140 million contract with Walgreens, which required them to launch by February 2013, and they were 4 months overdue. The lies continued. The financial forecast that Sunny gave to investors were 10 times higher than the internal forecasts of the company. These numbers were completely fabricated, as Theranos was operating without a CFO for the last 7 years, ever since he was fired. Theranos' board, as always, was still stacked with high-profile reputable names, so no one doubted the company. The company was very politically connected by this stage. Elizabeth even threw Hillary Clinton a fundraiser for her 2016 campaign.
I don't know if JM is still in the chat, but JM, do you remember how obsessed Alex Jones was with Hillary Clinton? He was so obsessed with her. That was funny. Anyway, you're here? Yeah. He was so obsessed with her. Being like a shapeshifter and a goblin. And never forget that Hillary Clinton killed Harambe because Harambe had her emails. Never forget. Rest in peace, Harambe. He was a real one.
The shortcomings of the technology were well known within the company, but employees were usually too scared to do anything, fearing retaliation from Sunny, Elizabeth, or the company's lawyers. Employees were forced to sign confidentiality agreements when they started, and again when they left. This stopped a lot of people from taking action.
Well, this is the thing with things like NDAs, which are supposed to protect trade secrets, right? When you're up against a company that's got like all her personal wealth is supposed to be what, like in excess of $1 billion at this point, right? You can't come out against these people. Like civil lawsuits will ruin you. They will ruin your life. Will you have to like? Will you get like incarcerated? No. But will you be financially ruined and your family out on the streets? 100%. Like you can't go up against these companies. That's what these people will tie you up in litigation forever. And ever and ever and ever. Oh, Defo's here. He's my #1 TikTok dude. Hello. Yeah, these people will destroy you with litigation. Like litigation is so expensive. Like how much like these lawyers and solicitors charge that do like civil suits per hour is insane. They'll charge you like $300 for like doing some photocopying and stapling a document together. Like don't doubt it for a second.
In mid-2014, Fortune magazine released a front-page story titled, "This CEO is out for blood." This rockets Elizabeth to celebrity status, and from this point, she is constantly making media appearances. Forbes, USA Today, NPR, Fox Business, CNBC, CNN, and CBS News all took their turn to cover the success story of the youngest ever self-made female billionaire. Barack Obama made Elizabeth the US Ambassador for Global Entrepreneurship, and she was added to the Board of Fellows at Harvard Medical School. Elizabeth enjoyed the fame. She grew her security team to 20. Her office was redesigned to look like the president's Oval Office, complete with bulletproof glass. Elizabeth spoke on a TED Talk about her idea to change the world. She said, soon no one would...
People like this terrify me because you meet people like this in your everyday life, right? They just are like either too lazy or not just quite smart enough to pull this off. But you meet a lot of people that would be terrifying if they weren't so lazy or they had like, you know, an above average IQ. Like a lot of people are very like Machiavellian. They just don't have the intelligence to like, you know, carry off any like sophisticated schemes. But yeah, it's a scary world out there, man. There are a lot of people out there with like these dead eyes walking around, being creepy creeps.
Richard, by this stage, had created a gang of Theranos skeptics, including Ian's widow, Rochelle. They collected information and then took it to John Carreyrou at the Wall Street Journal. As John began investigating, countless sources and former employees came out of the woodwork. They anonymously provided information about the story. Theranos attacked everyone who was talking. They used their pile of money and they threatened to sue everyone else who spoke to the Wall Street Journal. They even hired private investigators to stalk anyone they suspected. Several letters were sent to the Wall Street Journal to try and kill the story, threatening defamation lawsuits. Rupert Murdoch, the owner of the Wall Street Journal and investor in Theranos, was asked by Elizabeth to personally kill the story. He refused, stating that he had confidence in the editors to handle the truth, whatever it may be.
Rare Rupert Murdoch W, guys. Can't believe we have to give Rupert Murdoch props. Can't believe we had to say that at some point Rupert Murdoch acted with integrity, but god damn it, this hurts my soul. We have to give it to Rupert. We have to give it to Rupert on this one. It hurts my soul. It hurts me. It hurts me deep inside, but we have to give it to him.
Elizabeth was making White House appearances often then, but under the veneer, the machines could still only do a small number of tests and were inaccurate with even just those. Theranos continued to demonstrate the mini-lab for VIP guests. They pricked their finger, then waited until they left, and then went on to use existing commercial third-party lab machines to return the results. Vice President Joe Biden even paid Theranos a visit. He was shown a fake lab that was set up just for the visit. He was impressed, saying that it was the lab of the future, and praised Theranos. The dark truth about Theranos was finally unveiled in the Wall Street Journal article of October 15th, 2015. It was a bombshell. All the major news articles picked it up. People began questioning Theranos and its secrecy. Elizabeth took it all in her stride, not shying away from the questions, but instead outright lying to the public. It appeared that she thought everyone would just believe her again, but this time it was different.
This is what happens when you work to change.
Do you think people would take me more seriously if I spoke like this? Hello, my name is Panda. I am a very attractive young lady. Please give me money now. It hurts to speak like this. Does that sound creepy? I think it sounds creepy. It sounds creepy to me. I don't know how it sounds. I don't know how it sounds to everyone else. It sounds creepy to me.
And first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world. And I have to say, I personally was shocked to see that the journal would publish something like this.
Now, Theranos was in full damage control. Elizabeth broke up with Sonny and fired him. A criminal investigation was underway, and a probe by the Securities and Exchange Commission was also proceeding. The investors began suing Theranos one by one.
Honestly, a handbag full of cheese and cats would go hard. I like cheese and I also like cats. It'd probably be heavy though to carry around a lot of cheese and cats. But you know, I think we could find a way. Although my cat really likes cheese. She only eats tuna mornay or like the fancy feasts that have like cheese in them. Yeah, so she would probably eat all the cheese and there would be no cheese left for me. And the cheese that would be left would be covered in cat fur and it would be inedible. But, you know, we'd have to work on like creating a handbag with like compartments in there. You could make it easier with kittens and brie. Ooh, I like a good camembert. I do like a good camembert. I will say, I'll have like a kitten compartment in my handbag and a camembert compartment in my handbag. We could do it.
Theranos had voided nearly 1 million lab results. 10 patients would sue Theranos for medical battery. But shockingly, amongst all of this, Elizabeth never apologised. It seemed to her merely a mistake along the way which could be fixed. So Elizabeth and Sunny both knew what they were doing, lying to investors, their clients, the regulators, patients, and even their own board. She seemed, by all accounts, a sociopath, willing to stop at nothing to make her company a success, not caring who or what got in her way, and who knows how far the lie could have.
Senpaku spotted. Yeah, she has senpaku eyes. Senpaku eyes? 3 whites. That's what it means in Japanese. Where you can see like either the we all have like white at the sides of our eyes, right? But if you've got like white showing at the top or white showing at the bottom, it's senpaku. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's how you count. So it must be san, meaning 3 white. So san is 3. See? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I can count to 10 in Japanese. Are you proud of me?
She continued with all smiles and lies even after the truth came out. Elizabeth's actions could be a microcosm, a case for a modern problem in society where the need to be successful, or at least appear successful, outweighs everything else.
Oh yeah, apparently the influencers rent out like a private jet set where they take these photos. Hang on. I saw a thing about it. Yeah, apparently this is a set that they rent out. It's like not a real plane. See? It's like how funny, how like desperate. Look, if I fly economy somewhere, if I can even afford to get on a plane, I'm like flexing about being on an economy flight to anywhere, dude. I'm like, look at me. Look at me. I'm living large. If I ever get to fly business class or like first class, hell yeah. That would be insane. Has anyone in chat ever flown business or first class? Tell us, pleasant, what it's like. But yeah, that's so funny. Imagine caring like that much what other people think about you. It's like, yeah, I fly Jetstar. I fly Jetstar all the time. Sometimes Qantas is cheaper than Jetstar. There have been times when like Virgin and Qantas have been cheaper than Jetstar when I've like had to fly up for Sydney for like an emergency or something like that. But most of the time I'm in Jetstar. I'm having a great time. But if I have to do first class is all the things you think it is, depending on the plane and airline, and business class international is pimped up. Yeah, I think it might be Emirates or Etihad that has like these insane like first class suites where like you get like a full on bed and it's like a little bedroom and you get like a shower and stuff. I think so. I think that was what airline it was. But anyway, I remember watching a YouTube video on it and it was like nuts. I was like, it would be so nice on a long haul flight to like be able to lie back and sleep. But what I do to make long distance travel bearable is I go and get a Valium script from my doctor. I get some diazepam. After 6 or 7 Valiums, it doesn't matter. I'm out, man. I'm out. I'm drooling. I'm drooling on the person next to me. Sorry, person sitting next to me. I'm gone. It's the only way I can get to sleep. I usually mix like painkillers and Valium together. And it's how I do it. How I be doing it. But yeah, it's what we do. We got to do what we have to do. Where was the video? Is it over? Did I get rid of it? Oh no, it's here.
The SEC settled with Elizabeth Holmes in March of 2018. She lost voting control, had to give away her portion of the stock, and was banned from being an officer or director of any public company for 10 years. Sunny still hasn't reached a settlement with the SEC. Both Sunny and Elizabeth have been indicted on criminal charges in an ongoing lawsuit at the time of this video. They have both pleaded not guilty and each face 20 years in prison. Theranos was dissolved in September 2018.
Yeah, JM, I've heard that about business and first class because business is already so much better than economy. I've heard that too. I think if I was like really, really rich, like if I ever become like a decently sized VTuber and I'm making, you know, 150,000 American dollars a year or above, I think like business is probably, I don't think I would do first class. But like if you get married or something like that, like if you get married and you're on your honeymoon, they'll usually upgrade you to first class. That's That's something that they usually do. So I'll do that when I get married, when I'm going on my honeymoon. I'll be like, it's my honeymoon. And they'll be like, here you go, you can fly first class. And I'll be like, yay.
If Theranos was to keep going, would they have made it? Would their blood testing machinery ever have worked?
I should choose business for my health. Well, you know what? Like, I can't fly without painkillers. Like, I need to have at least 3 tramadols in my system to fly, because especially flying anywhere from Australia, right, you're kind of doubled over for at least 9 hours. And with my joints being the way that they are, I'm just in agony. Like, I can't. Now that I'm like kind of in a better financial position than when I was younger, now if I'm like flying to Europe or something like that, I can afford to during a stopover, like get a hotel. So I could get a hotel in like Singapore for the night, or I could get a hotel in like Kuala Lumpur or wherever I'm changing flights. But when I was younger, I used to like spend like 16, 17, 18 hours at an airport. I remember one time I was stuck at Cairo airport for an insane amount of time, like over 24 hours. I was stuck at Cairo airport just waiting for a flight because, just to save money. It's nice not to be that poor anymore, but yeah. If we can make a fraction of what Iron Mouse makes in a year, that would be nice. Cairo airport was one of the most... I ignore all of your messages. What did you say, Pookie? You've never paid for first class, but you've been upgraded a few times? Ooh, you haven't done a Middle Eastern airline one, though. It's $25,000? That's actually cheaper than I thought. I thought first class was like $50,000, $60,000. I don't know though. I have no reference point. Like, I think the most money I've ever paid for flights is $3,000.
The unveiled mini-lab was only incrementally better than the Edison machine, even though Theranos had hundreds of millions of dollars at their disposal. So with that being said, it's pretty unlikely that any company would have succeeded at this. So that wraps up our look at Theranos. So I know that would have lost some of the faith in humanity that you had. But if you want to see some real actual...
No, I never had faith in humanity,
things
ever.
Such as real-life nanobots being used in cancer with success in mice trials, or stem cells being injected directly into the brains of stroke victims, allowing for recoveries never seen before, and even enabling a wheelchair-bound man to walk again. This is the kind of cool stuff that gets lost in the sea of media day to day. But you can find those videos right here on Cold Fusion. I'll leave a link in the description below. Anyway, thanks for watching. This has been Dagogo. You've been watching Cold Fusion, and I'll see you again soon for the next video. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.
If you can't afford comfort, you'd rather not go. See, before my lupus got really, really bad and my pain got really, really bad, a thing that I used to like to do was like go hiking and camping. So like, for example, I did this. This was really fun. I did this thing in the Blue Mountains. It's like a 3-day hike, and you have to carry all your own like stuff. And yeah, you just take like a hiking tent and a sleeping bag, and I had like, some shin ramen and like a little boiler, and you bring like water purification tablets, because obviously you can't carry 3 days worth of water, especially when you're a tiny... I would have been like 42 kilos when I did this hike. Yeah, my daddy dropped me off in Katoomba, and off I went on my little hike. Did have a run-in with some British backpackers that I had to may or may not have to got a knife out. But we'll pretend that didn't happen. And yeah, it was a nice hike overall. 42 kilos, I'd have to be a tiny teen. Yeah, I only weigh like, I think at the moment I weigh like 48 kilos. But yeah, I was incredibly skinny. I didn't really have enough food to eat when I was a kid. My mum used to, I don't want to get into it, but my mum used to, I was very neglected as a child, and I didn't get enough food to eat when I was growing. So it, yeah, we won't go into it too much, but didn't have the best mother, let's just say.